Good afternoon, everyone. I feel like I'm back home coming to Christ the King. This is where I had my first Mass. My parents lived in Cotuit Bay Shores, and that was 23 years ago and 4 months. I'm not counting, but I just happened to figure that out. So it is coming home. There was a woman in a coma who was dying, and she seemed to be taken up to some type of judgment. And a voice said to her, "Who are you?" And she replied, "I'm the wife of the mayor." And the voice said, "I didn't ask you whose wife you are, but who you are." "I'm the mother of 4 children." "I didn't ask you whose mother you are, but who you are." "I'm a school teacher." "I didn't ask you what your profession is, but who you are." And so it went. None of her answers seemed to satisfy the question, "Who are you?" "I'm a Christian." "I didn't ask you what your religion is, but who are you?" "I'm the woman who went to church every day and helped the poor and the needy." "I didn't ask you what you did, but who are you?" Well, she didn't seem to pass this examination. She was returned to earth, and when she recovered, she was determined to find out who she was. And that made all the difference. Who are you? While you're thinking, I'll tell you about an interview of Boris Yeltsin, former president of the Soviet Union. And he was asked who inspired him to stand strong while the communist government collapsed around him. And he said he was inspired by Lech Walesa, the head of the Solidarity movement in Poland, a former electrician who went on to become president. And Lech Walesa was interviewed and asked who inspired him to lead this Solidarity movement against a powerful communist regime in Poland. And he said he was inspired by Martin Luther King Jr., the head of the civil rights movement here in the U.S. And Martin Luther King Jr. was interviewed and asked who inspired him to help usher in this needed social reform in our country. And he said he was inspired by Rosa Parks, the woman who refused to move to the back of the bus. Is it too much of a stretch to think that a small woman from the South was responsible for the fall of communism? Rosa Parks knew who she was. Who are you? While you're thinking, I'll tell you about a hero of mine, a Redemptorist priest, Father Albert Lamont from Belgium. He had been a POW in World War II. He escaped. He was recaptured. He joined my Redemptorist order after the war, and he spent over 60 years serving in the Caribbean. He just passed away a few years ago at 96 years young. And we were together on the island of Dominica. And we were having a retreat given by the Bishop of Grenada. And the bishop asked us on the first day to introduce ourselves, to tell everyone who we were. So most of us got up and we mumbled something like, "My name is Kevin MacDonald. I'm the assistant parish priest in Our Lady of La Soie Parish." And it got around the room, and it got to this priest from Belgium. And I remember him standing up straight and squaring his shoulders and saying in a clear voice, "My name is Albert Lamont, and I'm a citizen of heaven." Father Lamont knew who he was. Who are you? The Gospels that we hear every weekend contain a question and a principle which underscores our entire Christian faith. And the question is the same one that Jesus asked his apostles. He asked, "Who do you say that I am?" And of course, Peter answers, "You're the Christ." But what did that term mean in Peter's imagination? What did it mean to the early Christians? What has it meant over the last 2,000 years? What does it mean to you? Catholic tradition has refined that answer over the years. And today we would say that Christ is the one in whom we find the fullness of divinity. Everything it means to say the Father is God, we can say about the Son, who is incarnate in Jesus. And we know that not only do we find full divinity, but we find full humanity. So that when we look to Jesus, we see one who is like us in everything except sin. So we would answer Jesus' question, "Who do you say that I am?" We would say, "You are the one who shows us that the fullness of divinity is to be found in a human being. And the fullness of humanity is to be glimpsed only when we see the reality of God." If you want to know what it means to say the word God, look at this person. Look at the life, death, and destiny of Jesus of Nazareth. And if you want to know what it means to be a human person, if you want to know who you are, or who I am, at our very best, at our very fullest, look at this person. Look at the life, death, and destiny of Jesus of Nazareth. The fullness of divinity is to be found in a human being. And what flows from that is the all-important principle that anything which helps us become more fully, perfectly, splendidly human is making us more like God. Whatever humanizes, divinizes. Whatever makes us more human makes us more holy. And what flows from that is the lesson that our Lord tried to impart to his followers throughout his life, and it's simply this: if we hold on to our lives, if we grasp them and don't let them go, if we deny others free access, we will lose them. But if you hand them over, if you give them away, if we are willing to die, what we'll discover is that we can never, ever run out of life. If you hold on to it, you lose it. If you give it away, it becomes everlasting. Perhaps an image would be helpful. In Dante's Divine Comedy, in the 100th canto, the very last section, he tries to do the impossible. He tries to describe the beatific vision. He tries to describe what it is like to see God. And of course, he fails. He just fails less than anyone else who's ever tried. And what he said that he saw was a dazzlingly bright light. Now that's common ground for others who've tried to describe God. But Dante goes on to say that at first the brilliance of this light took away his vision. But gradually his vision was restored and even grew stronger. And he could see in this light 3 concentric spheres of light, all different colors. of course reminding us of the Trinity. And as he looked into the middle of that light, he could see in its very center one who looked just like him. He sees the incarnation. He sees the fullness of humanity united to the divinity in the person of Christ. And then he said in that remarkable last line of the canto, "Then I knew," he said, "then I knew the love that moves the sun and all the stars." What unites us with God is our humanity. That thanks to the incarnation, you and I and God have one thing in common. We are all human. So therefore, if we wish to be more like God, we need to be more human. And the way to be more human is to help others to be more human. And the way to do that is to give ourselves away. My experience in leading these parish missions, and most of my work has been in the Southern Caribbean, in places like Dominica and St. Lucia, in Trinidad and Tobago, and St. Vincent and the Grenadine Islands. I mean, how lucky am I? Is that God seems to wait for certain times in our church year to move in powerful ways. Now, I'm not limiting God to certain days or seasons, but it does ring true. For example, the Christmas season is a time of the year where charity seems to overflow. And certainly the Easter season is another, the pinnacle of our church year. But I'd like to add to that list a parish mission week. Not because of any pearls of wisdom that you'll hear, but rather because of all the prayers, all the sacrifices that have been made throughout the year, allows God to do some amazing things during a parish mission week. If you're doubting, put it to the test. Perhaps you've been praying about something or someone, and there's been little or no movement in answer to that prayer. Bring that petition to the parish mission. It begins on Monday night at 7 o'clock, and you'll be walking to your homes or to your cars by 8 o'clock. So it's not a huge outlay of time, but God doesn't need much time. And these first two nights, Monday and Tuesday evening, are services. And I like to stress that because we all know people who have drifted away from the church over the years. And sometimes inviting them to come back to a Mass is a little bit overwhelming. But a service is different. In fact, this whole mission is going to be different. When I was here 2 years ago, the nights were me talking. But this time around, it's going to be all of us listening. The focus is going to be on the Eucharist. Jesus present to us under the disguise of bread. And we're going to be looking at the Eucharist and allowing space for God to communicate with us. And how unsettling that can be. It's a wonderful experience, and I hope you might give it a try. We will be ending with a Mass on Wednesday night. So it's a wonderful, different type of parish mission. Consider yourselves invited. God does want to move in a powerful way in our lives. All we need to do is show up. And by the way, there will be a morning component of the mission at 8:30 on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning. There'll be a special mission Mass, and the morning's talk is different than the evening's talk. So I hope to see you during the week.